So, my name is Rosie Robertson, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you here today. I'm going to take a few minutes just to introduce proceedings. And I'm going to start by talking for a minute about the purpose of today. So there are a few different purposes of today, one of which, of course, is to launch the new Shared Green Societies Forum. And one of the core aims of this forum is bringing together policy, practice, and social science and humanities research for Green Deal transitions. And green transitions are a policy challenge, they are an on-the-ground practical implementation challenge, but above all of that, they are a societal challenge, and this is why understandings around society and people are so central, we feel, to this conversation. And the role of social sciences and humanities research, SSH research, and bringing this into dialogue with policy and practice is really vital. This might include reflections around equity and justice. It could be insights into education and skills. It could be looking at business innovation and economic systems. It could even be thinking about ethics and learning lessons from history. And these are all really vital to bring into this conversation. Another thing we wanted to flag up around today, perhaps a little uniquely, is the fact that we're really emphasising working across green transition policy areas. So that means that today's event is not just, for example, about energy policy. It's also about looking at food, looking at biodiversity, looking at circular economy. And we have experts on these topics in the room with us today, people who are working on the ground, people who are researching these topics, and people who are looking at policy areas related to this. So this is a really important part of today. And finally, I quickly wanted to mention another aspect of the forum, of the work that we're doing, that we're going to hear a little bit more about in our panel session, which is the idea of going beyond simply targeting individual behaviour change or systemic change and looking at the in-between spaces. And this could, for example, include a forum which helps to affect conversations and the way that knowledge is shared across organisations and how that can impact on both individual practice and also systems. So the programme for today, it's really a day of three halves. So we have our morning where we have our keynote and our panel discussion. And we have an afternoon where we have more interactive sessions for those of you in the room, which we're really looking forward to. And then we also have a drinks reception and policy insight event this evening, which are going to be looking at the future of research and innovation funding. And for those of you online, participation in the evening event is also going to be streamed. You can have a look at the Friends of Europe website, and it will be live streamed there this evening from 6 European time. So I really want to welcome, it's fantastic to see so many of you in the room, but we wanted to welcome our online participants as well. And thank you for giving us your time. We have a number of people joining us online. We also wanted to flag up some of our hosts in the room. Now, the Shared Green Societies Forum has been seeded from the Shared Green Deal project, and we have quite a number of consortium partners from Shared Green Deal in the room. They are denoted by a green dot on their badge, and perhaps they could just put their hands up in the air now, just so you can kind of see. There's quite a number of them here, and anybody is welcome to chat to them about the Shared Green Deal project throughout the day. We also have a number of local partners who implemented local actions as part of the Shared Green Deal project. They are denoted by blue dots on their badges, and we're going to hear from someone in the panel session. And finally, today's events and this launch are also intertwined with a number of events from the SSH Centre project, which is working to strengthen social sciences and humanities communities in climate, energy, mobility transitions. And the SSH Centre, we have a programme of events which started yesterday, in fact, and continues after the policy insight today. And they are denoted by yellow dots on their badges. So perhaps the SSH Centre consortium members could also put their hands up now, and you're welcome to talk to them as well. Finally, we wanted to say how blown away we were by the interest in today and the relevance of the initiatives that all of you are representing. And we really feel that this is a fantastic start to this forum. And actually, we wanted to acknowledge that that start began with a co-creation event way back last May with NGOs and also European Commission actors who gave their time and their insights to help shape today. And we want to thank them in particular for all of that. We know some of them are here and some of them are joining online as well. So thank you all for being here, and I'm going to pass over to my colleague Valeria.
Hi, thank you so much, Rosie, and thank you all for being here. I'm Valeria Frantini from ALDA, and I will briefly introduce to you the Share Green Societies Forum that is launched officially and formally today. I invite you all to check our forum strategy that was co-created in this workshop in May. The people in the room can see the QR codes, but also the people online will receive it. Because I think it's very interesting. And again, it was a great work of co-creation. And thank you all again for who was there. As Rosie was mentioning, it's very important for us to create this connection between, again, local practitioners, civil societies, and researchers. In fact, the forum, the Share Green Societies Forum, is a European forum that aims to connect civil society, local and regional practitioners and authorities, and social sciences and humanities researchers in order, again, to transform research into community innovation for a just green transition. So this was very relevant for us to create this platform of connection among these actors. And for these reasons, during also thanks to this co-creation workshop, we identified 3 main objectives of the forum, which are also connected to the sessions that you are about to attend to today. So first of all, it's very important for us to support citizens and professional participation. So again, citizens and professional and non-governmental organizations, civil societies can truly have access and transform green transition. Then what is relevant for us is to support these mutual knowledge flows, meaning that we want to bring together local practitioners on one hand who work locally on green transition and social sciences and humanities researchers who research green transition and sustainability so that they can both exchange knowledge. So local practitioner can gain access to the research and to the toolkits and the outputs of the research, but at the same time researchers can gain from the lived experiences of local communities. And then, of course, we want to bring these two groups together. So we want to bring together academic insight and grassroots experience in order to advocate and help shape inclusive policymaking. So these are our 3 key goals of the forum that, again, were really born from the needs of the stakeholders that we involved during the first co-creation workshop. As you can see, I mean, again, these are all information that we will share again with you, so you will have time to properly read. But we also foresaw various levels of engagement in the forum, and we really, really hope that you will want to be actually engaged after today. This is our main goal. And again, we will share with you the form, but you can also find around the room QR codes to become part of the forum. And we will share again also with our online participants. We have foreseen various levels of engagement, forum members who are the most engaged, also potentially in the governance of the forum, which are both network organizations and research organizations and universities. Then we have our forum champions, and again, an example of this is, for example, our local partner, which are less engaged in the co-creation of activities than forum members, but they play a key role in the knowledge exchange. And then we have the less formal role, but still very relevant, forum friends, which are key stakeholders that can, again, play a key role in some of the activities of the forum. So this is a general overview, but I really invite you during the whole day to come with us, to check with us and ask questions about it. And if you are interested, which I hope you are, if you're here. So thank you again. I will this is a QR code if you want to already check. But without further ado, I'm happy to pass the mic to for our first session of today. So Chris Fools, please, if you want to introduce us to our amazing keynote speaker. And yeah, please. And thank you again.
Thank you so much. Great to see everyone. If I can invite Astrid up to join me, and I'll do the necessary introductions. So we now go into our first main session of the day, and the focus is on exactly as has just been mentioned. How can policy, practice, and SSH research best come together for the good of the European green transition in its many forms? So perhaps I'll begin by introducing myself and, of course, Astrid, and explaining a little bit more how this session will work. So I'm Chris Folds. I'm a Professor of Sustainability and Society at the Global Sustainability Institute, Anglo-Ruskin University in Cambridge, and with Rosie coordinate the SSH Centre in the Shared Green Deal project. So the idea, hopefully, for this session is that it's a little bit more of a informal, as much as possible within this setting, conversation rather than a flurry of slides. Hence why you may have noticed in the program it's called a keynote conversation. So this is our hope, and we're really acknowledging that there's a lot of expertise in the room as well. So the way that the structure will work is that Astrid will open with some opening comments. I may ask a couple of questions. We've got three kind of esteemed speakers on the table here that will provide a brief reflection and maybe pose a question to Astrid, and then we'll open it up. And I'm certainly all for, if perhaps there isn't time for all of your questions to be answered by Astrid, at least throwing them out and posing them to the room, I think is a good thing for a day such as this. So please do store any questions or comments, and we'll do our best to collect them towards the end of the session. Astrid, it's so great to have you. Maybe I should properly introduce you, but we were delighted that you said yes to helping us launch this forum and being here for this session. Astrid leads the Green Transitions Unit at the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation. So the role of that DG is to help drive research and innovation to help fill the EU's policy ambitions and, of course, meet Europe's many challenges. The mission of Astrid's unit in particular, though, is to accelerate Europe's green transition and support the transformation of its economy to operate within planetary boundaries. And so it focuses a lot on the scientific and the technological knowledge to help foster more kind of an innovative, systemic set of solutions. And Astrid herself has a background in agricultural science, natural resource economics, and over 20 years experience within the European Commission. So really, I think you're perfectly placed to reflect upon some of these connections. Maybe I can pass the mic to you. I'll pick up one for myself. And really, it's just an open moment for you to say anything you'd like to around how policy, practice, and SSH research communities can, should, or have worked together from your experience. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much, Chris, and I'm really, really delighted to be here. I think that a forum and an event like this is actually exactly the type of things that we're looking for when we're trying to, as you say, accelerate the green transition. I think in these times of geopolitical turmoil and a lot of bad news every morning, when you look at the press, I think it's so important that we come together from time to time and we really share all of the many good things that works in Europe. So I'm really delighted to see so many people who also turn up live. I think that we are facing a lot of difficult times. The climate change effects we're starting to see happen are really bringing devastating news, and then whoops, you're on to the next thing, because at the same time, technologies have so dramatically changed the way we live and do things. both for the better, but also for the worse. I think artificial intelligence is a real game changer for good and for bad, and something that we also in the green communities need to talk about. I wanted to talk a bit about what we actually do and have done in research. And then indeed, I think it's so important to say we have invested billions in various axes of green transition related research over the last years. Many of you, I know, are part of the projects, for example, under the 1 billion call, Green Deal call some years ago, where there's many excellent projects also coming together, connecting the science, the news, the solutions that have been found. But in addition to that, of course, there's so many other parts of European research that are contributing to the green transition. And I think that is what this day could focus on a bit about. What is it that is important in making all these connections? Where is it that is essential right now for us to move forward and really connect some of all the very, what I call very vertical, deep knowledge, sometimes very science-based, technology-based and so on. But we all know that without that actually, without humans making that work in practice, taking that information and finding the right way to apply it at the micro level, at the meso level, at the macro level, how is it that we can really use social sciences and humanities to help us bring it into practice? And both bring it into practice, but of course also bring it into policy, because practice and policies are two sides of the same coin. If citizens are scared of a new technology, if citizens do not have the knowledge of a new technology, things will just not move and not happen. And I think today, what I would like to underline is that Europe's role as a true bridge builder and our convening power to bring people together in forums such as this is something that we need to cherish and really also need to protect as we move forward. I do think that at a time of a lot of disinformation and misinformation, it's so important that Europe really stands by science, and that our President von der Leyen has underlined numerous times. Europe wants to stand for science and will continue to invest in science, and this is also why we have proposed a quite steep increase in funding in the future EU budget for science going forward. But so with this, just to open the event and to emphasize that making connections is great at the human level. We can all learn every day, we can grow our knowledge, we can move forward together. But in certain areas, we really need to move fast. So we need systems also to be organized in a way that takes into account the science, but also connects the humans and the way of the uptake of the new solutions. I think actually the opening of this forum was very nice with your colored dots, right? Because that's exactly the kind of organizational structure you always need to have. Keep track of the numbers, the scale, the technologies, but also how will all of this sit in society and how can we move forward together?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, just checking it's on properly. Great. Yeah. Thank you. That is great. I mean, I'm really enjoying your reflections on. I mean, you're implying the European project, if you like, and how it manifests itself through our collaborations, even here today, for that common purpose. And I think actually you were referring to sharing best practice, which links really nicely to the next session, and also the kind of almost the sharing of our, like, establishing shared goals help bring us together, which is also a topic of a session on advocacy this afternoon. I did want to pick you up on one point. You mentioned that AI game changer, and you referred in passing to something that we need to talk about. I mean, certainly in my world of SSH research, that there's a lot of concern and reflections on the usefulness of AI as a substitute for kind of what would often be seen as kind of rigorous SSH analysis. You know, if AI is being replaced as the evidence maker, if you like, aside from the sustainability aspects of kind of the water and the carbon. But obviously, you know, it is potentially a powerful resource to bring people together too. So I sensed you had some thoughts on AI when you moved past. Is there anything you'd like to say about it for how a forum could work and how you're imagining, or how the Commission are imagining AI could be used to aid collaborations?
Yeah, I think that the AI is one of these topics that also quickly can split a room in two, and I think that we have too many issues where we're splitting the room in two these days, and this I think is part of what is the risk for Europe going forward, to continue having this very no, I'm for, I'm against, and not seeing the other side of the coin. Obviously, you all know some pretty alarming environmental impacts associated with extensive use of AI, because energy, we have not come to grasp with how we can lower the energy consumption. And if you also look at the next levels of material consumption and water consumption and so on, of course, this is something we need to keep a very close eye on and be very conscious about how we want to use AI. But as with any technology, whether it's good or bad is very related to how you use it. And where I really see some opportunities is that sometimes what holds back some obvious rational new findings, for example, in the area of technology and green transition and science, is simply that there's so much data to be grasped with, and you want to be systemic, and you want to move forward, and you want to look at every single aspects every time, and that sometimes really slows us down. So, for example, I've been toying with this idea of, for years I wanted to host an event inviting the key researchers from the International Intergovernmental Panel for Biodiversity, together with the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, together with the Panel for Resource Efficiency. And people are very busy, top-level researchers who sit on a vast amount of knowledge. They're very busy. So at best, you sometimes manage to get a working group and two people in a room to draft a new report together. But this could take things to a new dimension. I mean, if we manage to set up artificial intelligence systems to organize all this data, we need to move forward. And then, of course, we need to keep grasp on how we manage that. And similarly, when you're creating something like a forum, which is at the end of the day also a network of networks, and each of you will just never humanly, even if you are working very hard, be able to meet everybody in Europe that is working on these things. So you will need to work via, and using AI in many ways can really help organize huge amounts of information, but also huge amounts of people.
Yeah, it's great that you're highlighting the complexity of scales that we're having to work across, as well as this kind of obvious kind of critical and urgent timeline that we need to push on, which obviously does, yes, provide this sense of urgency. I mean, perhaps with this urgency in mind, and us acknowledging, and perhaps we're all definitely on the same team, so to speak, that we're acknowledging that practice, policy and research needs to work better together. I wonder if from your experienced position of leading these policy initiatives within the Commission, if you have any words of wisdom to people in the room, particularly from practice organisations and from SSH research organisations, on how you would encourage them to do more or do less of particular things to I suppose, support your policy endeavours. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, as I say, on the one hand, this connecting all the dots, we can all talk about that and connecting all the people, but as we also know, the urgency is really huge, and we need to be really careful that we don't just stay within our own nice bubbles of people who think the same way as we do. We really need to get out there and break some boundaries. And that's for me also what innovation really is about. So, I mean, already, for example, the distinction between research sometimes in social sciences and humanities, there are events, there are boxes, but bridging that research with research from other areas, I think is just so key. And moving forward, I would say to the practitioners as well, I mean, be pragmatic, practical, and prioritize. So always look at things from this. I think a system perspective is so important. Map what you're doing, where you are, but don't get hung up on doing everything. Focus on where you can make the most value added at that moment in time, where you can move something forward on the ground. And maybe it's not perfect, but as long as something is happening, we're all moving forward together.
Thanks. I suppose those words of wisdom actually do relate to if we're wanting to target kind of incremental changes, as well as potentially some more radical changes that may take longer time to seed, but they're great observations. Thank you. So now we're going to move to 3 respondents who have, I suspect, been making notes and reflections on Astra's contributions to date. And we'll begin with Malene first, who I'll perhaps introduce. So as a reminder, if we could kind of keep the reflection to sort of 1 minute and maybe then with a question, that would be fantastic. So Malene Gonzalez is a project coordinator and policy advisor at Eurocities, which is a network of over 200 major cities across 38 countries in Europe. And she also has experience of working previously in the European Commission's DG for Energy. And part of her role, as I understand it now, involves working on the Net Zero Cities platform, which is the platform supporting the European mission for 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. So quite the task. And I'm sure you are very much at this interface between policy research and practice. So over to you, and thanks for contributing. And we're interested to hear what you have to say.
Thank you very much, Chris, and everyone for organizing this event. Hi, everyone. Sorry for putting my back here. I just want to echo what Astrid started with. I think we are very lucky to be here in the times that are running right now in the world, to have this shared mindset as well, to make a better world and with climate action as well. As Chris introduced me, as indeed I work at Eurocities, and the way we work with our members, we represent more than 200 largest European cities. The way we work with them is to translate their evidence-based actions into better policy at European level, indeed, especially in climate, which is also our top priority for the mayors. We run annual surveys, both for the mayors, but also for the practitioners, to understand what are their priorities. It's the so-called Eurocities Pulse. I invite you all to have a look at it. And the last one from 2025 said that climate is the top priority of our mayors, paired with housing. And we know that housing nowadays is also a very important topic at EU level. But just to say that cities are the main level of administration that are implementing the climate policies. 80% of European climate policies on mitigation are implemented at local level, and the 90% of climate adaptation also at local level. So this is very important to translate in European policies, and this is how we do it as well, through projects such as Net Zero Cities, indeed, where we work with the 112 mission cities, and we have here Vilnius with us, which is also one of the mission cities. But it's very important to highlight that cities are the main actors that also try to engage local practitioners from different civil societies, researchers, academia, and they also try to implement these innovative actions through public procurement, for example, for their goods and services, through living labs or innovative financing instruments. So it's essential to take the cities into account when it comes to policy and practice. And hopefully we will have more funding from the European level in the next MFF regarding this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, I suppose the main takeaways that I get from that are that there's a huge emphasis on whether it's labeled the Green Deal, the Green Transition, but to achieve a lot of the goals that are set by the European Commission, it really does depend upon local action. It's where it's delivered and where it's experienced. So I suppose there's matters of funding to enable that, but also local expertise and what the partnerships look like on the ground. Did you have any reflections on what's been mentioned?
Well, maybe just to say that indeed, if we look at the last decade, I would say also of European funding, you'll see like a sprouting of funding pockets to really look at this place-based innovation. I'll call it very often in innovative cities. And also a lot of other funding, not necessarily for innovative cities, but really for cities to build capacity building. Because I think with the EU urban agenda, Europe has really recognized the role of cities, and cities are very important actors for us. Of course, what I think is important is that we need to look at things in a dynamic way, because when we saw a sprouting, I would say, of lots of initiatives that are addressing very precise issues and problems. And for example, one I run in my own unit is called this Circular Cities and Regions Initiative, where we're really innovating together with cities and also trying to bridge financing gaps with the European investment banks, specifically focused on circularity. Other initiatives are addressing climate. Other initiatives have sprung up out of other interests. We need to constantly also think of new ways of cutting this, then saying, what was the best we learned here? And maybe we need to sometimes let go of an initiative we started and start a new one, because that's also linked again to what I say, enlarging all the time, thinking about scale and enlargement of the pool of those who are learning from each other.
Thank you, and thanks, Malene, for the kind question. If you could pass the microphone to Lena. Malene just, I suppose, offered perhaps a policy organisation perspective, and now we move on to someone that's based at a practice organisation. So let me introduce Lena. Lena Bublite is the head of EU projects at Let's Renovate the City Vilnius. I haven't tried to pronounce a Lithuanian term for that. Apologies. And that's the one-stop shop for multi-apartment buildings in Vilnius, Lithuania. As has been mentioned, is a central part of the Climate City contract for Vilnius as a mission city. And Lena was also a wonderful partner in the Shared Green Deal project, which we will talk about in the next session a little bit more. Lena, thanks so much for offering your experience and perspective here. What did you have to think about what we've talked about so far?
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. Sorry again for the back. Right. So yes, you mentioned the cities are very important, which is where it starts, but I would go probably a little bit deeper, and I'll go to citizens, because I come from the practice and we work with the citizens on a daily basis. And I think what Astrid mentioned, that citizens are scared of technologies, and we face that very much so. And I'm sure Chris knows our example of K13. So in Vilnius, in like a heart of Vilnius, we have this old multi-apartment building, still not renovated. And what we try to do, we try to make it as a prosumer. So building, kind of producing its own energy. And the residents said no, because they did not know about innovation, about technology. They were scared about that. We wanted to put PV panels on the balconies. They thought they're gonna get burned from it. So we organized the meetings with PV panel suppliers and everything, and they still said no. So I think my point here is we have research, we have innovation, we have so much good results, but how to get those results to the residents in their own language? They don't want to read reports, you know, they don't want to, they want something simple, something down to earth to kind of for their understanding. So I think my question is like how we can connect that research and the results and take to the residents so they can take the decision to renovate and to make the city more beautiful and better, kind of for the better living conditions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's great that there's a tangible example, and it's a shame it's still not renovated yet.
They are going, but just for normal, like traditional renovation, not the innovative renovation, unfortunately.
And I think this example also shows that even when you go to residents with all of the financial numbers and say, you know, you don't need to pay and you'll actually end up saving money yourself, and it's only good news, good news, good news, whether it's a matter of trust in institutions, providing that message or whatever it may be, but it's not this kind of rational choice of, oh, that is the right thing to do, I will do it. There's other things going on. Thank you for the example. Any reflections?
Well, I think you mentioned the word trust, which I think is something that is really important and probably more important right now than it has been, at least through my lifetime. And how we can see, so we see there was a Eurobarometer in October last year where we look a bit at the trust of citizens in different member states and the trust towards institutions. And we do see some quite worrying trends of a feeling that the system is not working for people, a feeling that trust is falling, solutions are not being found on the ground, and people are living difficult moments and don't see institutions as actually helping them. I think here, I think it's so important also to be very precise with what is it actually that's not working and who can do what about it. Because we have a lot of a blame game ongoing also of something is not working, Europe has to solve it. But when it comes, for example, to a renovation of a house and people having hesitations because maybe they're culturally attached to the way the house looked, maybe they're scared. If you say if there's no financial issues, this is sometimes maybe not the best case for Europe to come in and start, you know, dictating. This is where we also need member states that works. We need local authorities that work. We need cities that work and need to understand really what is it that is the triggering for making this happen. Is it about rebuilding trust with citizens? Is it about delivering new results to them? But Europe can't always be there to solve these issues. We can look at it from a different perspective. And that's coming back a bit to something you mentioned, Chris, which I think is so important, is the difference between structural changes and incremental changes. And we see for really a lot of the European Green Deal ideas and solutions that are really wonderful, great. People are, why is this not just being done much more, especially also if there's no social hesitations. But again and again and again, it's a question of price. And if the price is not there, if it's paying off to do something that is less green, most people will choose to do something that is less green. Not everybody, but at least those who cannot afford to do the green thing. So this is something that is essential. I feel that it's sometimes, it's also very much part of social sciences and humanities to look at the economics, right? But often in discussions at European level, we come to say, but we can't really do something about green taxation. So then we move on and discuss the next thing. But there's something there that needs to change. If we don't manage to make the polluters pay at the local and regional level, and the green solution should be the cheapest one, if the market worked perfectly, then we will not move forward fast enough.
Thank you very much. So we've gone from the policy to the practice, and now we'll complete the trio with reflections from an SSH researcher. I'm delighted to introduce Julia Levington, who's the head of Department of Human Dimensions of Global Change at Czech Globe at the Czech Academy of Sciences in Prague. Julia has been an IPBES coordinating lead author, as you mentioned earlier, the UN-backed Biodiversity Global Assessment, and also coordinates the Plus Change Horizon project and the Transformers Cost Action. And she's also a work package leader in the SSH project, so obviously has the correct sticker on her badge. Julia, over to you. What have you got to say?
Thank you, and good morning. And thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. This is a really interesting conversation, and you've actually just been talking about this question of scale, so behavior change at local, national levels, uptake, support, and how that feeds into the European level and the European role. And as you've been talking, I've really been hearing this call for a need to move at speed. We need to do things quickly. And I found that really important. And at the same and so that creates a real role for social sciences and humanities in uptake and supporting and understanding these factors like trust and institutional change at city and national levels and so on. And at the same time, through our work in the SSH Centre, we're really showing that there's a lot of appetite and work that's being done by the more critical social sciences and humanities around the way in which we might need to avoid perpetuating some of those social and cultural patterns that are driving unsustainability, rethinking some of the bigger problem framings around, say, climate and biodiversity, and the bigger kinds of options and policy goals that we even have in place that then shapes that space for those practical solutions. And in SSH Centre, we, based on our work, have been formulating a research and innovation agenda. I have a copy for you here. And we took it to a roundtable discussion yesterday. And one of the things I took from that discussion was that actually quite a lot of the way that the topics are being framed and the way that the problems are framed in co-creation is already perhaps closing down some of that space for the more critical engagement with policy goals and policy trajectories and the kind of structures we're putting in place. So I'll conclude with a question to you, which is about how might the Commission open up space to support and work with some of that more critical knowledge on problem framing and policy direction?
Thank you. A lot in there. So I suppose at the heart of it is the tension between is the role of research, innovation, and SSH, in this case, there to kind of meet the demands of policy, and how is that then inscribed into the projects that are funded and the evidence that we create, and how voices may be enabled or marginalized as a result. Thank you, Julia. That was great.
Yeah, I think that in a way it comes a bit back to, I mean, I understood in your question that in the framing sometimes of when we from the European Commission side comes out and say, we absolutely need somebody to look at this problem and come up with solutions to solve it. But that in putting that out, you might find that we are not always open enough to what are the innovations that actually we have not come across and therefore have not put into our calls. And this, I think, I think this is really, for me, also a lot linked to the simplification that we're working very hard on in the current Horizon program. Are there ways that we could free up the thinking that has become very boxed in? And then if you read all the criticism of the last framework program so far, it's a lot about the fragmentation of the results and therefore not always seeing the synergies that potentially could come from also combining social sciences with other sciences and so on. It's something that we are working on. With it comes just always the thing about speed and direction, because of course the more open you let the topic, the more you're also fishing in a much broader sea. I think one of the things that also for us like this really can do in a way is also to say that when the call texts were written years ago for some of the calls that your projects are actually responding to, obviously those were just written with, at that moment, the best available knowledge within that institution, right? The world has moved on dramatically since then. So the question is, as you are now coming closer to the final stages of your project, what are the kind of branching out and looking at the connection point and the uptake of the results you have come to that potentially needs to be carried forward, maybe in future new projects, but also maybe not always projects funded by the EU level, but things that are going on at local and national level as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our three respondents for those great insights and examples. They really helped develop the discussion there for sure. We're almost at the end of our session. I think if it's all right with Kinga, I may borrow a couple of minutes from the next session as we started slightly later, and I think we have time for that. We will end this session with kind of hopefully a 30-second take-home message from Astrid. But before we get there, I just wanted to open it up to the room. Perhaps there isn't going to be time for Astrid to respond to your question or comment, but I think for the good of kind of setting the scene and the kind of the collaborative dynamic, hopefully today, we're really happy to pass the mic around to a few people. I don't know if people wanted to raise their hands, if they had any thoughts. Great, that's very kind of you. It's always difficult to be the first person, so now there'll be a flood. If we can get the microphone in, if you want to signal and put your hand up, we can maybe get one or two others.
Hello, I'm Bogdan from Bankwatch. One question about information and disinformation and citizens about acknowledge something. I know when there was the Polish presidency a few months ago, they had a report on disinformation in Europe and actually how much money is spent in Europe, especially on cognitive war, on Green Deal, for instance. I think they were talking about some billions of euros per year in Poland only. So when we are questioning that citizens agree or not with something, I think we're not focusing enough on disinformation. We think we're on a play level field and it's just the science, the reasoning, we're not convincing enough, but we often forget about how much cognitive war is around. And I was just questioning if we also talk enough about this. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a nice observation to make. Can I bring anyone else in that has any comments to make? Is there anyone brave enough?
Thanks. I'm Anna Melnick from TU Delft, and I wanted just to quickly jump in on, the point shared by Julia, but also earlier emphasized by Astrid about how intertwined European Union is with the material flows, but also like in general from a global perspective. Right. And I was thinking to what extent there is a room to bring also all the other actors that maybe are outside of Europe, but are interconnected significantly, right, with the pathways that we are taking, especially if we emphasize the issues like urgency, right, and the need to, decarbonize economies, for instance, right, and bring new infrastructures. So I didn't hear that being raised yet, but I think it would be really great if that would be also, at least a part of discussion, and we would be quite transparent to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think maybe we could take one final comment if anyone else. We've got one at the front, unless you saw anyone else first. Great, over here. Thank you. Why don't we just take them both? Go on, if we could be quick, that would be great.
Thanks, I try to be quick. Inge Nistra from the Research Institute for Sustainability, and we were in a sister project of Shared Green Deal called Real Deal. I had a comment on Astrid's fragmentation in the AI section. I just wanted to say, it reminded me, we have so much knowledge and data. We need AI to digest all this and move and the speed. I acknowledge all this with the speed. I still find this too much a jump. Now we need AI. There's so much potential and things to do to get over this fragmentation. I mean, even without AI, because the degree of fragmentation is really so big. And in this big Green Deal call, there were efforts done by this Green Deal support office. I guess people will be here. So that was already good. But I think that something like this has not been before. And even there, this links, of course, to the mechanisms and incentives in the science system itself, that this kind of bridging is not rewarded. Therefore, also you do not get your international panel bigwigs together. So I just want to plea, let's not forget that there is a lot of things to do in normal human organization between research before jumping to AI.
Okay, and it really, if you could be quite concise, that'd be great. Thank you.
It's very short. You pronounce 3 words, and the first one was be pragmatic, and the 2 others, I didn't capture that. So if you could repeat it, please, if you remember.
Thank you so much for those that were going, and to our first speaker for raising their hand first. That was kind of you. So obviously, it's now a very unfair task of me to say, is there a kind of a 30-second take-home message? But I mean, hopefully just doing that has at least given kind of a sense, like a pulse take, if you like, of the room. But I don't know if there's any closing thoughts that you'd like to say.
Well, I'll try to be really speedy, but also reply to some of the questions which I really think are essential. Disinformation, I totally agree with you that this is just so essential, and this is also disrupting so many things that we're doing, and we can't take for granted that we're coming at the same information level. And I think you mentioned, I really recommend people to find the report from the Polish presidency. It was excellent. The Polish Environment Ministry put a lot of spotlight on that. And they also organized colleagues that are working in the field of both climate and environmental science to really do more. The Commission has also a task force and is trying to invest with the little money we have. But if you compare to the billions indeed that are being invested, so this also comes back to investing in good education, right? So for people to really spot those mistakes. International, whether that is for your project or not, I'll leave that question to you. But from the European Commission side, you can see that while many other parts of the world are closing in on themselves, and some are also saying that we are in Europe, we are really trying to go out there and make allies. You've seen von der Leyen being in India this week, making new allies and agreements. And in the area of research, we are working now with the Canadians, the Japanese, the Koreans. There's so many other countries that are interested, and I think we should continue doing those cooperations. Finally, on AI, I do not mean in any way that we should now replace all kind of projects and things with AI, but I think it's a technology that can help us speed up a number of things. So it's something I really think we cannot, in the green field, with so much data and information that needs to be structured fast, we cannot ignore this. It's a game-changing technology.
Thank you so much for your reflections. I mean, I think that this session has set the tone really well for what I think will be a really great day of discussions. And I return to what you mentioned at the start about kind of the need for sharing best practice examples, frank discussions, and think about what kind of problems we kind of have shared across these different green transition areas, and how we may work together. I think that's really great, and I particularly liked your phrase for place-based innovation, actually, which links perfectly to our next session. So with that, I will pass over to my colleague Kinga, but maybe we can thank Astrid for her time. Thank you.